this Lucidpress tutorial. Today I'm going to go over some editing tips, and in particular the text panel in Lucidpress. First, I'm going to start out with a text box with some dummy text in here, and I want to point out two things. This text box has this little plus sign. It's highlighted in red, and that means there is more text in this text box. So this text box is too small for the amount of text that I have. And to fix that, I can just hover over and click the plus sign, and my text box becomes large enough to fit all of that text. Alternatively, if I wanted that text box this size, I could create another text box and have the text flow into that text box. And I do that by adding a new text box. And I'm just going to make it roughly the same size as what I have, and I'm going to delete body text and hover over this little blue arrow. So I get this plus symbol with my cursor when I hover over that little blue arrow, and I'm going to click with my mouse and drag to the new text box, and my text flows from this text box into the new text box. Okay, onto the text panel. Fonts. So each of these sections of the text panel can be collapsed or they can be expanded with these little arrows. Fonts, if I click on the drop-down menu for fonts, I will see all the fonts available in Lucidpress. You can search fonts by just typing a name of a font that you know. And if you go back to that drop-down, that search keyword that you typed in there before will still be there, so you can hit delete and then all of your fonts will show up once more. If you choose manage fonts, this will allow you to upload fonts that you have found online, and in order to upload fonts they have to be particular file formats, and if you do have any questions about that, please ask me. Here you can change the size of your font. You can either click these little up and down arrows, or you can highlight the number and type and hit enter. Each font will have different options below in a drop-down menu. So this Times New Roman has the options of bold, bold italic, italic, and regular. This will change depending on the font that you choose. You will also have the options here of bold, italic, and underline. Right here, these are additional text options. I'm going to grab a heading text, and if I click on this text option, I can choose formatting of strike through, subscript, superscript, all caps, sentence caps, so this will capitalize and make larger the first letter of the first word of your sentence, and then all the rest of the letters will be a smaller size. So if I found a template, one of Reinhardt's templates, and everything was capitalized and I was editing that text and everything remained capitalized but my caps lock wasn't on, it's a good indication that if you click on this text option that your all caps is selected. And if you don't want that, you can just click off of that so it's not blue anymore, and you'll get uppercase and lowercase letters again. Character styles, you can make character styles for yourself if you'd like. So if you chose that, and let's say we changed it to this font, you can create a new style from this button here or down here under paragraph styles. You can create a new style and name it, and then if I select text that isn't this style, I have my new style that I created down here, and that will change that text to that style. So that's helpful if you're doing a feature sheet or a brochure where you want like maybe headlines or something like that to be one particular style, and then the body of your text another style. So within this paragraph styles, we have all of these preset styles for you: heading, subheading, body text, and then some different script headings, some sans serif fonts and serif fonts. So if I wanted to go back to the regular body text, I can just click on that and it goes back to Lato at 10 point. So those can be handy if you're working quickly through a feature sheet or a newsletter, something like that. Bullet and lists. Oh, I missed these right here. So aligning your text. So right now this text is left aligned and it has a jagged right. And that's this option here. This would be center aligned, right aligned, and then justified, meaning that the text goes from end to end and there's no jagged edges. And here, top align, middle align, and bottom align, this just moves the text within these text boxes. So currently it's top align. If I click middle align, it shifts it down a bit, and then bottom, it shifts it down a bit more. So it's pretty subtle changes, but that's what that does. Bullets and lists. If I had some options here, so let's just say I have 3 items here. I can select bullets, and those would be bulleted. I have options of different bullets. This is the standard bullet would be the first option, and then you have alternatives down below. If I wanted them numbered, I can select that. I'm going to go back to bullets, and then your indenting. So bullet indent, so that's the space between the edge of the text box and the beginning of your bullet. So I'm going to change that to 0. And then text indent is the space between the bullet and the text, and I'm going to change that to 0. The color, this is the color of your bullet, so you can change that as well. And list item spacing, that's the space between each of these items. So you can increase or decrease that spacing. Next, we're going to move on to the spacing section. So right here we have 1.3 lines, paragraph, top spacing, padding, character, and stretching. So this 1.3 lines is going to control the space in between each of these lines. The paragraph is going to control the spacing of individual paragraphs. So if I were to put my cursor here and hit enter, that's what this paragraph spacing is controlling, the space between this paragraph and this paragraph. So if I increase that spacing, that paragraph moves to this other text box. If I decrease it, the spacing starts to decrease, as you can see. In changing the spacing of the lines, if I decrease that, it will change the distance between each of these lines, but does not control this paragraph spacing. So you can have some more manipulation of your text by using these 2 spacing options. This top spacing just controls the space between the text and the top of the text box. So you can see if I increase that, the spacing increases between the top of the text box and the text. Padding is going to increase the space all around the text box and the text. So as you can see, as I'm increasing this, the text is getting shrunken inside of that text box. It's just moving in because more space is being added on the inside of that text box. Character spacing. This will increase space in between each character, and that includes spaces in between words. So if I had this text selected and I increased the space, you can see that the space between each character is increasing. This could be handy if, for instance, you had a long email address or something that you needed to make a little bit more condensed so that it fits in a particular space. So if I made that 95, that space decreases a bit. And then you can also change the character size. So this stretching will change the width of each character. So if I selected that text again, I can make this 95 as well, and that just shrinks the size of that. If If I increase it, I'm going to do 150 so you can really see it increases that width of each character. Okay, so be careful with each of these. You don't want to make your text look silly, like it's changed too much. And if you are changing the character spacing or stretching of each character, for example, in an email address, when you don't have either of these selections applied to a phone number or something like that, you want to minimize the difference in look between the two. You don't want the email address to look totally different than everything else. And you can control that just a bit if you just move these down to like 98% or 95 at the most. It won't be that obvious. So I've already showed you how to create 2 columns or 2 paragraph or text boxes here out of one long body of text. But you can also make columns in a text box. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to just expand my text box a little bit. I'm going to go down here to the columns section and add another column. So I can have 2 columns within one text box instead of having 2 text boxes that span the text throughout both of them. This gutter is the space in between this column and this column. So I can increase that, decrease it. I can make 3 columns if I wanted. So this could be handy if you're creating a newsletter or something like that. Tabs and indent. I'm going to go back to 1 column. This is an indent on your first line. So for instance, like a storybook maybe, how they have the first line indented for each paragraph. And then left, this will indent all of the text on the left, all of the text on the right. And then before is between the first line of text and the top of the text box, and after is between the last line of text and the bottom of the text box. And then your default tab, you can change the spacing on that. So if you were to click tab, that spacing default is 0.5 inches, so you can control that. Horizontal rules. You'll see these in the listing presentation on the testimonials. I do have horizontal rules at the bottom, so it just can separate text. If I wanted to add, we can put one at the top where your cursor is, at the bottom. So put my cursor down here, and you can change the distance between the text and the rule by changing the padding. You can change the color of the rule. So it just separates text. That's what horizontal rules are. And you can always do that with the line as well. And moving down to warp. So I'm going to grab heading, and then warping just alters the look of text. So right now its default is none. If I choose wave, you can see how it's altering that. It's creating this wave, and you can adjust with these sliders. Just change it around a bit and see what kind of distortion you might like. Arch is probably, no, it's all messed up. Is probably something you could use if you're, creating a brochure or something, or a postcard, and you want to emphasize the top heading. You can make that arc and just increase that distortion. Play around with your text a little bit. Linking. So this URL link would be if I had a website, for instance, Reinhardt's website. My computer is being a bit slow. So you would need to go and copy that URL from the website. and then select URL by clicking on it, and then paste that URL and hit enter. And once you hit enter, you'll see this green little check mark, and now you've just created a link to Reinhardt's website. If you want to check on this link, you can always click the preview, and it'll let you click on that and make sure that the link is set up correctly. So I'm just going to hit editor to go back to my editor mode. Other things you can do with linking, I'm going to put a new is linking to an email address. So and hit enter when you're done. So that will link to an email address, and when someone clicks on that, their mail will open up. You can link to a page. So this is a page within your document, your current document. Right now I have 4 pages. So if I chose, I'm going to delete that link for the email and click on page and then select one of my pages. So I'm going to select page 3, and if I hit preview, so this would be if you had a longer document and you wanted, maybe this was a table of contents or something like that, you can link to the page within your document. You can also link to a publication. So this would be a published document in Lucidpress. So anything you've published in the past. However, these all have links. They all have URLs. So I would just, if you wanted to do that, I would just recommend clicking the URL and pasting it right there and hitting enter. Okay, hyphenation. This is the last option in the text panel. Its default is turned off. So if I don't know if it's going to hyphen any of this text because it's Latin. Probably not. But if I select hyphenation, there we go. You can see how we have some hyphens here. And obviously that's going to change depending on the width of my text box and where the word breaks. But if you don't want hyphenation, because sometimes it doesn't look great, and it will adjust your text so that you don't have hyphens. So I'm going to click off of that, and it's just going to get rid of those and make the words break on each line so that the word isn't broken. Okay, so that goes over everything in the text panel. I hope that was helpful. Thank you for watching.